Greetings and welcome to the weekly edition of the Safe Crypto Show. I'm your host, Tyler Jordan, with co-hosts Mike and Jason. Each episode attempts to cover a range of topics, beginning with a roundup of the top cryptos of the week. Next, a discussion of general crypto news and happenings, and then we consider new and interesting projects and ICOs. All followed by a brief discussion of the weekly tech update by MadeSafe. Let's get started with the show. Safe Crypto Show disclaimer. Please keep in mind at all times that we, the hosts and guests of the Safe Crypto Show, are not offering or giving investment advice. We only state our personal opinions and thoughts on our own interests. By watching, you agree to not hold us responsible for any losses you may incur by executing trades or by maintaining holds based upon the subjects discussed in our episodes. It is Thursday, the 4th of January, 2018. Welcome to our first episode of 2018, and Happy New Year! Today I'm joined by co-hosts Mike and Jason. There is no MadeSafe update this week as the team at MadeSafe are on holiday. So let's begin. Welcome, Mike and Jason. Thanks for joining the show today. How's the biting cold of the USA?
Yeah, it's a little on the too cold. We need more degrees here.
I'd concur on that, yeah.
It's almost hot here today. I'm surprised. We've had a kind of a cool summer overall in Tasmania, but a bit hot today. Should have the fan on. So this week, our first topic as usual is the top 5 cryptos. So we've got Bitcoin. I'm just going to open the chart here. Actually, let me I'll just open the chart. It'll refresh that way. I'm going to go to the 7-day view here. It's been mostly sideways. We haven't gained much for the week. A tiny bit. What do you guys think about
pretty much flatline?
It's a bit squiggly up and down. It did go down down to as low as 12,666. Now it looks like it's near its high today at 15,735. So maybe it's going to start moving up. Volume is still really good, as is typical with Bitcoin. I don't have much to say about Bitcoin this week, although we will mention it in one of our news segments later in the show.
I will say that the Bitcoin dominance is at a record low.
Good point, yeah. It has moved down, thanks largely in part to Ripple, but possibly a little bit to Ethereum too, which is getting close to the 1,000 mark. I'll get to Ethereum in a moment. So let's go on to Ripple next. Just going to pull up its chart. Ripple's
it's a hockey stick.
Number 2 on CoinMarketCap. It's had an amazing week, up 36,000% in 2017. I still don't own any and probably won't. There's too many red flags with Ripple for my taste. For example, a large percentage of Ripple owned by its founders, whose net worth, by the way, now exceeds Facebook founders Mark Zuckerberg. Apparently the founder of Ripple, one of the main founders, I'm not sure of his name, I think it's Chris. We'll all know his name soon. He's now in the top 5 wealthiest people in the US or in the world or something.
In the world, yeah.
Amazing. That's something you won't find, well, I guess Satoshi Nakamoto is pretty high up there too, but I'm skeptical that he has access to his account anymore, so those bitcoins are probably lost. Otherwise he'd be in the top 10 or so richest people as well. I think most cryptos are a little more evenly distributed in that manner, though. There aren't too many that have made their founders so enormously rich.
Well, it's only rich if they convert out of them, so it depends on what your focus is on monetary. If you're talking about fiat, they have to convert out of them, and no doubt that any kind of that sort would go. Yeah.
Even if you've got $5 trillion, it's just paper, isn't it? Until you actually own something of real value. But what's real value in the end? I don't know. It is hard to say. Wealth comes and goes.
And a physical discussion for another time.
You could have the Queen of England's palace, and You know, some troops could come take it away from me tomorrow.
Only if I could reverse time to December 12th and invest in such
Yes.
dominance.
Actually, if I could reverse into 2016 and put everything into Ripple, we'd be smiling quite well now. Although I would instantly sell it. I would have sold it before then. I would have been panicking. Oh, no! Okay. I'm not sure. Do you got anything else to say about Ripple? I just don't know what to say about Ripple. It's been an unbelievable
Man,
run.
Japan and South Korea going crazy with it. So
Yeah, who knows where it's going to end up?
We will be talking about Ripple more in our news segment below, so we'll save that for then. Next is Ethereum, number 3. Pulling up the chart there. Let's have a look at the 7-day.
now, is that a new thing this week where Ethereum was number 2 and now Ripple is number 2? Right?
Yeah.
So
Ripple has come from behind. I'm not sure if last week it had briefly gone into number 2 and then Ethereum.
Yeah, it was number 2. It was number 2 last week. As far as for the amount of the difference and stuff, I thought it was closer than what it is now, but they've both gone up so much this past week that it's kind of hard to tell exactly week to week where they were in comparison. Have to go and start saving snapshots of the charts.
Yeah.
Oh, what's what?
Probably
Week.
not too necessary for our discussion, but
yeah. Anyways,
Ethereum's gone up a lot this week as well. Not as much as Ripple, obviously, but it's had a very strong week, and it's
over one grand.
Yeah, well, it did break through. It looks like, and then it's come back down. But it's gonna, it's toying with 1,000. What's going to happen as it gets firmly over 1,000? Some people I've seen rumors are speculating that it's going to really start to break out once it gets past this point. I can't
It'll be interesting to see.
predict the future, but it's interesting. So, Bitcoin Cash, the next one. Just pull up the chart on that.
It's had a pretty bad week. So
It has.
Yeah. Well, it could be considered bad if you're looking at everything else with its very, very green set of lines, but as far as for that, it's not really down that much. It just
Mostly
hasn't
sideways, yeah.
compared to everything else.
yeah. Oh yeah, I'll give it that. But people invested in the last couple days, they're not too happy right now. So
No.
I did own some a couple weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago. I bought into it, and it just went down since then. So I lost a chunk on that. I've since moved into Litecoin and lost a further chunk on that. I can pick them, right? Yeah.
hey, but we can go right into the next one for our buddy Mike here.
You might decide to change your mind. Yeah. Bitcoin Cash. I don't know. I'm not big on it at the moment. I'm not big on any of the Bitcoins at the moment. I don't think.
Yeah, either am I.
Aggressive technology, but I would prefer Bitcoin Cash over Bitcoin long term personally, but that's just me.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Number 5 for the week, Cardano. Holy moly!
I think Mike should talk about this one, right?
I
Yeah.
had a discussion on Cardano last week, and
I kept my mouth shut last week. I would have had to have given full disclosure that I had a reasonable stake in Cardano last week when you're being nervous about it. It's like
Yeah.
I was like, well, if you're right and it does go down, then I will see some losses, but went the other way this week. It was about 52, 51 cents or somewhere around there last week, and it hit its peak on this last run up yesterday. It was at about $1.30. I'm showing $1.09 at the moment.
Yeah, $1.09.
Still up
Yeah.
dramatically from last week. It's up according to the crypto market cap. It's up 159% over the past 7 days. So, from low 50s to $1.10, $1.15 or so.
I
But,
kind of now wish that you had spoken out about your holdings last week, Mike, because then it would have looked a little more balanced. I pretty much probably scared some people off from it, and now all our viewers hate me now. I just
Sheesh.
tend to prefer really rational. Like I like to hear a rationale for why to invest in something, and I had no rational reason to own Cardano. And
Yeah, as far as for
even
me,
now I
it
don't.
was
So I
yeah,
can't.
it was just some supporters, and one of the factors that I've been looking at the past couple weeks is, I was looking at something. My criteria was how close to the top is it on the market cap? Is it in the top 25? Is it in the top 20? And last week there was Cardano, there was NEM, Stellar, and they were all three under a dollar. So I was like, well, this Cardano's number 5, and it's still well under a dollar a piece. So, I think a lot of the cryptos. Jason was telling me a little piece of information that he located that I thought was pretty interesting, talking about the cryptos that are under a dollar have seen massive movements, whereas the ones that are very highly priced, the Bitcoin cashes and the 2000
Anything over $500 is
yeah,
low. Yeah.
was getting hammered. And I was like, all right, well, let's see if Cardano is able to continue, because it had jumped from about 20 or 30 cents up to about 50 cents. And I was like, well, let's see if it goes up to what some people were projecting, which is much higher than what it currently is, and I was looking at it, and over the past week it's actually worked out fairly well. And Ripple has, we were thinking that the price was crazy last week, and it went up from that.
Oh yeah.
I never expected it to be. It went up to what, about 3.85 or something like that, $3.85. I forget exactly what it went up to this week. Let me get the appropriate chart here.
All I know is that when you see it go from 20 cents up to 40 cents, you're like, oh man, I've already missed the boat. And then that 40 cents is $1.37. And then next thing you know, you're like, oh, I really missed the boat. Can't get in it now. No, it's only going to go down. And then it goes up to 250, and you're like, oh my God, wow. So
it's like I've recommended on other places where I've posted my opinions. My thoughts are pretty much this: is the number of people that actually know about cryptocurrencies, and the people who know a fair amount about cryptocurrencies realize that in the grand financial scheme of things, a total market cap of $750 billion. I've heard people quote that $200 trillion is all the money in the world if you were to convert it into dollars. And at $750 billion, you're still not at 0.5% of the world's money is tied up in cryptos. I wouldn't be a bit surprised to watch the total market cap of the number of cryptos, which is currently at 1,384, up about 13 from last week at 1372, I think it was. So 12 more than last week. That says a lot about the number of cryptos. There's 12 in 1 week that have come out. But still, the market cap at $750 billion is still a drop in the bucket compared to what happens if the number of people actually starts getting some market penetration. And the number of people that know about Bitcoin is much greater due to the just amazing rise that it's had over the 2017, going from under $1,000 up to 20,000 and then back down to about 15. But still, 15 times multiplier in 1 year is mind-blowing as far as any investment goes. Some people claim it's a bubble. I call it a transformation in technology, just like the PC revolution in the 1980s, the internet revolution in the 1990s. We're seeing the crypto revolution now, and it's brand new.
Yeah.
So as far as that, I have amazing bullish outlook for 2018. And that increase in amount of money in the whole cryptoverse is going to go up. The governments will have to go and figure out a way to get their slice of the pie. I just don't think that any government's not going to try and do something in that regard. And essentially, we're at the Oklahoma Sooner land rush, or the gold rush in using the United States history. California gold rush, Alaska gold rush. People go where the money is.
What I'm looking forward to is I think there's going to be a lot more investment a lot more entrepreneurship, a lot more small businesses coming into this space. I think it's going to really explode because of the fact that there is so much money pouring into this area, and anybody who's thinking about doing, say, an IPO on a normal stock market has got to be having a second glance and thinking, well, maybe it would be cheaper and better long term if I go into this space instead. And I mean, it's going to be a transformation for stock markets. I think they already are. They're already seeing a movement of money from small investors away from them and into the crypto space, and they're seeing a lot of potential young companies that they would like to have in their market coming over to the crypto markets.
Even though I will say that today the Dow did hit record of 25,000. So
I had no idea that it was up that high.
And it went up, and it's gone up.
That's amazing.
And the crazy thing is it's gone up 1,000% since Trump's been in office. So interesting fact. So
I read an article on Zero Hedge last week that indicated that actually there's been, from the general public, there has been an exodus of money from the stock market and the bond market. And so, given that that money's coming out, why is it still going up? Why is the market still going up? Who is actually buying into the stock market? There's a lot of people who think that the central banks are manipulating the price. They're stabilizing the price, and
plunge protection team
they're coming to own everything. The big banks are coming to own it, and everyone else is going to be left out in the cold in that market in the end, I suspect, because I just don't see, are they actually going to let the U.S. economy fail? If they do, what's going to happen to the tax base, to the whole system? It would go into a rapid free fall, and then the whole government and the whole banking system would come into question by the populace, as opposed to if they just keep printing money and inflate the currency slowly, well, ever faster, but if they do it that way, people aren't going to notice so much. And I think that's maybe what's happening. I mean, I don't know, but it's my personal belief at this point in time based upon the evidence I've seen. But that's way off topic, and we drifted dramatically. News segment.
Well, today, just before we go to news segment, I just want to go and point out one thing. We usually do the top 5, but the number 6 is one that's called Tron, up 626% this week at 28 cents a piece at the moment.
Tron at number 7. Did it just?
It's at number 6.
Yeah, number 6 at 18 billion. Yeah, it's up 137% today. and it's got the classic hockey stick going for its chart. It just goes straight up. It's like a moon launch or something. But I've been looking at this thing, and the number of markets it's on and whatnot is slowly expanding, and it's pretty interesting.
But again, it's one of those that's under $1, easy to invest into.
Yeah,
and
that's what I think.
when you can get a pile of them for say $1,000,
and
where you can
that may be driving that could very well be driving the rise in it. As people who are in the market,
new players to the market,
and they want to go and see something that increases.
It's like own 1,000.
An Ethereum kind of platform, isn't it? I think, but it's going to allow even like video file sharing and stuff. I think they're going to have. I mean, the videos obviously aren't stored on their blockchain, but I think it allows kind of smart contracts to deal also with like IPFS, which is a new file sharing protocol on the internet, and it stores files on other servers on the cloud, and then the blockchain contracts and things allow access to it. So Steam's DTube does that as well. Maybe one of the reasons Steam has taken off this past week too. But
it'd be interesting to see how it develops over the course of time. I like some of the interesting, the entertainment and video stuff and about it, and it looked pretty interesting when I was looking at the white paper on it.
Yep. Well, it's like own 4,000 of those or own a fraction of Bitcoin. I mean, So
Well, there is
Anyways,
one
we'll
thing
take
I'll
a take a
throw
look
in
at that.
right at the last minute. Is just why not? I've heard this speculation as well about some of the currencies versus some of the more company-oriented things or smart contract-oriented ones, or the younger ones as well in terms of cryptos, and that the main coins will tend to go sideways. So Bitcoin, Litecoin, Ethereum, some of the top ones will tend to go a little more sideways when all the other smaller coins are going up, and then that will reverse at some point. When they start going down, there will be a retreat back into the more stable, longer-term currencies. So what that would imply is that maybe in a week or two or sooner, we could see Bitcoin, Litecoin, Bitcoin Cash flying up, and all these others crashing back down again.
Yep.
I don't know.
Keep an eye
if you
on
can play,
See if that holds
hey, and
true.
if you can time those market, you will be a millionaire. So,
Easier said than done.
oh yeah, a lot easier said than done.
So topic number 2, our news segment. We've got a couple things on here. I'm not sure if we'll go through both of them, but let's just start with the first, the Intel Meltdown bug. So that's pretty big news all across the mainstream media as well. So what is it? The Meltdown bug is one of 3 hardware bugs that's been exposed by a Google researcher. It allows malicious software to read otherwise encrypted data. So it's normally encrypted or stored in a way that can't be accessed by other programs through basically little firewalls within your system that block access. But when they're being set up when the CPU's trying to figure out what to process next, it has a queue, and it puts data into that queue, and it's been discovered now that that queue is accessible, pretty easily accessible by the programs, and that allows them to read and see data in there, including passwords and encryption keys, things that can be used to access really high-level security stuff. So it's a major security hole, and it's been there for ages. Who knows who has already known about it? Probably the NSA, the CIA. They've probably already been taking advantage of this, but this has now been exposed by Google, and now they're all rushing to do something about it. Now, what's going to happen here? I think the problem is with the fixes is that the fixes will block the CPUs from starting to chain up what's next in the queue. They've got to stop that queuing from happening, and consequently it can drastically slow execution time, particularly for servers that are very busy, like a lot of cloud servers, and particularly a lot of the servers that are used by crypto exchanges. Well, any exchange really, but crypto exchanges are one that we're interested in, I suppose. And I think this is going to put a big squeeze on crypto exchanges. At the very least, the cost of hosting for these exchanges is going to go up, possibly by a significant margin, because they're going to have to buy more server time, and the server companies themselves, have been caught off guard by this, and they're going to have to expand. And who's going to eat the cost? Is it going to be absorbed, or is it going to ultimately all be passed on to the traders? So it's a big concern, and I think we're going to have to keep a lookout on that. I'm going to post a link to an article on this in the show notes, so I encourage everyone to look into it. If you have an Intel processor in particular, you need to look into patching your system, because you could be vulnerable if you had some malware get in your system. It could monitor and see you entering passwords into your exchange. When you go to an exchange, you enter a password, it'll be able to see that kind of information, possibly. So you need to be careful now, because this is a big hole. Any thoughts on that, gentlemen?
Well, not a whole lot that I can do about it other than install the updates and the patches and hope that it doesn't go and affect my my computing too terribly much. But at this point, there's not a whole lot that I can do about it other than look for the patches that get sent down to my computer.
Same here. I got an Intel chip.
You make sure that you've got the latest kind of malware updates and that sort of thing, because that's and be careful what you download, because at this point, there are probably hackers who are incorporating this security flaw into their software to be able to put that into malicious programs to try to get on people's computers, viruses and things, to extract this kind of information. So
Alrighty.
news item we have is I've called it the Ripple conspiracy. Some in the crypto community believe that the big banks and governments are conspiring to bring crypto to heel, to control it before it goes out of their control for good. So I've got a link to the Zero Hedge article on this. It'll be in the show notes. But the article is entitled, just go to here, Anatomy of a Crypto Nightmare. Ripple CEO is now richer than Zuckerberg. That's where I got that 36,000% in the last year zoom up in the price of Ripple. But that's not really the main focus of the article, so I'm going to zip down here. So, amidst all of the bullish talk about cryptocurrencies, I'm just quoting the article here, we know that a strike back from the banking system and its owners is coming. In fact, the attack I see is well underway. So it goes on to say, and it began with the attack on the credibility of Bitcoin Cash, and it's continuing with the insane pump of Ripple and any coin which has direct ties to old money. What I want to posit today is how the next crash in the cryptocurrency markets can and likely will play out. To lay this out, you have to believe a few things are true. Number one, the major money center banks have all been trading Bitcoin and other altcoins for a long time. They have substantial books to push and pull the price. Number two, the futures market is used to control the price during daytime hours in the US and Europe. Now, the future markets are new, so I'm skeptical that they have much play in that yet. But in the future, these future markets could well have some impact. Number three, Bitcoin's failure to implement SegWit 2x and its current dysfunction was intentional in order for Blockstream. Now, Blockstream's the company that has a pretty dominant control over the software of Bitcoin now. They have a lot of Blockstream is a private company, and they have a lot of developers who work on Bitcoin and are very active in the Bitcoin community. Anyway, so he says, I'm going to reread that. Number three, Bitcoin's failure to implement SegWit 2x and its current dysfunction was intentional in order for Blockstream to offer a solution to a problem that needn't have existed. Number four, Lightning Network is simply a backup control plan in case Ripple isn't adopted by the marketplace as the crypto settlement and exchange layer. Lightning Network creates a second layer of centralization off-chain. And number five, legislation and regulation to date has been designed to allow money to flow into the crypto markets but not back out again. I don't know that it's so much legislation and regulation that's blocking the flow back out. I think the banks themselves are doing things to do that. So the government, I think governments have been pretty hands off for the most part, and I think they don't want to catch any backlash here. So they're allowing the banks themselves just to make decisions on this matter. Pretty clear though that the banks, in my opinion, aren't too interested in cryptocurrency longer term because it's going to put them, if not out of business, it's going to greatly reduce their business. So I can't, fault them for wanting to block it, but we should be aware that that's probably something that they are interested in doing in one way or another. So this article goes on to say, Ripple, otherwise known as Bankster coin among we crypto enthusiasts. Now, I've never called it that personally, but I don't completely disagree with it. Is the stalking horse of the cryptocurrency industry. Its meteoric rise in price coincides with Bitcoin's peak and subsequent meandering. It was done timing-wise. To see articles like these, here, and here, there's links in the link that I will provide in the show notes. Written as we ring in the new year. So, the Bitcoin trap. It's on to say, look at the situation in Bitcoin after the failure to implement the New York Agreement, something that, now that was a long time ago now, that was where they were trying to adjust the block size versus alternatives with Bitcoin. So after the failure to implement the New York Agreement, something that didn't have to be an all or nothing proposition, Bitcoin spiked from 5,000 to a high near 20,000 in less than a month. Transaction fees soared, exchanges became illiquid. Getting altcoins off some exchanges was difficult, as many were revealed, or at least in the short term did not have supply of the underlying assets people were trading in their pools. I'm not going to go into this too much. I do recommend you read it because a lot of people are going to read this, and markets are driven by people, and a lot of people reading these things tends to shape how people trade as well, so it's important to understand what people are thinking and even whether you disagree with it or not, it is interesting to know and be aware of. And I recommend that if you do trade, being aware of what's going on is pretty important. What do you guys think about this article?
I thought it was pretty interesting as far as for the amount of information that they relayed. You know, if it's valid and on point, and on target, and actually, you know, pretty factual, then you know it could end up being a hurdle that'll need to be handled by crypto some point down in the future. You know, just it's part of the world that we live in. If we're in something that is transforming money and the perception of money on a global basis, you know, control the money, you control pretty much everything. You know, Rothschild said that back in the day. So
yeah, I think he said, I don't care who makes the laws, you know, as long as I can control the supply of money, then I basically can affect control over everything else.
give me control of a nation's money and I care not who writes the laws.
That's it, that's the one.
Yep, it's something that
and the bank token is number 2 on the list. So what do you know?
Yeah, that's what it looks
You
like.
know,
I mean, Ripple is very centrally controlled, and the owners do own a large percentage of their own token, which means they themselves can manipulate the price quite heavily if they so choose.
That's
Absolutely.
part of the reason why I didn't have any way back in the day when it was dirt cheap.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, as far as for that, could have had it at a couple pennies a piece, and
Yep.
it goes as a big run up. Got it into the top 10. That was earlier this year, and then watched as it went up to 40 cents, which was a shocking run up. Went down and, you know, floated around 20 to 25 cents for a while, and now it's, you know, done an 8 times multiple in the last 30 days. So
I think,
take it for
not,
what it's
not
worth.
all traders have a moral perspective on things. They can be very pragmatic,
No.
but I see that in this space, when you invest into something, you're supporting it. So if you invest into
Yep.
Ripple, you're supporting its network. And I personally, you know, think there should be, you know, for me, there needs to be a moral decision behind things, and so that's why I don't. I tend to avoid these more centralized structures.
Well,
I've-
every market has its day traders and long-term holders and believers. So
For me,
on
I've-
to our next topic. Oh, go ahead, Mike.
I was going to say that for me, I've said that there's three different tasks or 3 different things that describe, you know, a crypto that truly benefits freedom. It has to be open source, otherwise you can go and crock it from the inside and nobody knows. So it has to be open source. It has to be decentralized, so that there's no point of failure that is, you know, no person or no company that can be squeezed to go and crock it. And the third is that it has to be anonymous. And, you know, as far as for the cryptoverse, there's a handful of tokens or coins that do that. And it's interesting to see how much support those tokens actually get. And it's neat to see some of them in the top 20, top 25. And it's nice to see them when they get support. So, you know, as far as for that, that's one of the things that if I'm going to go and put my money behind something for a extended length of time, the hodlers, if I'm going to go and hodl on stuff, then I have to have confidence in it. And that's part of the reason why my made safe holding is as much as it is, and why, you know, verbally I'm giving my support to the made safe channel. So
Yep.
Take it for what it's worth.
Topic 3, our interesting tokens segment. So we're going to discuss Raiblocks today, and it's very different than Ripple. And then it's a pretty decentralized coin, and in fact it has a very decentralized distribution as well, with a lot of free coin were given early on, well, and that wasn't even too long ago. I think they shut down that in October maybe. So
Yeah.
it's
And it
been-
sounds like it was going for a rather lengthy amount of time as well.
That's right.
So,
that's right.
You know, I thought that was pretty interesting. It's a shame I missed the drip on
Yeah.
that. That'd have been a neat thing to have known about.
I don't
So-
follow enough on the new tokens are often talk. When you put out a new token, you'll often create a Bitcoin talk forum topic. They've got a special section in the Bitcoin talk forum, and people will post their ICO in there and talk about their project. And so that's a good place to learn about new projects when they come in. But I just don't have the time to spend looking in there, and I haven't been in there really. I was in there last week looking at Raiblocks because it was flying up, and I want to know what this is about. And I started to see more videos being made on it, and this is really interesting. So let's just go into the core attractions. It has 0 fees. Yeah, really 0. Near instant transaction speeds, around a second in most cases. It's massively scalable. It won't slow down in the future. It would have to probably get into the trillions of users before it would be a problem, and of course that's not going to happen because there's not that many people on the planet. What are its drawbacks? It is only a currency. It doesn't do smart contracts. It's just really focused on just being a currency. Doesn't do anything else. It's a small network yet as compared to other top currencies, so it's not as well tested. And because it's new, it's also hard for its value to break through all the other early movers. It's not on, well, I think it's only on 2 exchanges at the moment, BitGrail and Mercadix. And Mercadix
BitGrail is actually
been highly overloaded the past 2 or 3 days, and been having a lot of problems. I think because of Raiblocks itself, a lot of people were going to Mercadix to buy it, and they brought Mercadix to its knees, so they're out trying to increase the number of servers they have. Apparently, I'm not sure what's going on there, but hopefully they'll.
Yeah, and BitGrail. BitGrail is, that's that's Raiblocks. That's their dedicated exchange server.
Yeah,
so they don't really need a whole lot of
some people who are big supporters of Raiblocks. So there's not. I'm not sure how.
Yeah, seeing it on a major exchange would definitely be something that would, I think, have a positive effect on it.
It's going to happen soon. So I reckon we're going to see Raiblocks fly up over the next couple of weeks. In fact, I would be shocked if it didn't. So, I don't offer advice. I'm just telling you this is what I personally think, and I'm probably going to be buying some. Although at the moment, I don't own any. I don't think any of us in the show today own any. But,
nope, not on BitGrail or anything. So
I have tried to. I've already set up my account on BitGrail, but the transfer of Ethereum to the BitGrail was down at the time I tried to go and do that. They were doing wallet maintenance according to the website.
right.
So we'll do that some more likely than not by next week. I probably will have a position of some form on that Raiblocks. So as far as for how much it'll be, will be up to conjecture, but that's going to be where my stance is. I like a lot of the things like they gone and said. I saw it someplace where I read Raiblocks is everything Bitcoin really wanted to be.
Yeah.
It's a currency that has lightning fast transactions, and if you've ever talked to someone who's been a small business owner, having a form of payment that is faster on authorizations, that is faster than a Visa MasterCard transaction. You don't have to worry about chargebacks, and there's no fees involved. That's 3 home run out of the park draws for a small business owner. And if you go and team that up with something similar to what we've seen with the pulling of the rupee notes in India, and wondering how are we going to transact business.
Notes, I think they pulled.
Yeah, larger notes they pulled. And when you go and you look at that particular aspect of it, the fact that you can go, and I'd have to double check to see if there's an app for it. I can't imagine it not having an app that works on a smartphone. You're talking about something that any place where there is a cash crisis, I think Zimbabwe, I think Venezuela, I think India, not that there's a cash crisis in India, but if you're a small businessman and you're trying to figure out how am I going to pay for the transactions when I don't have a bank. They don't have the credit card levels that, United States and Britain and some of the other Euro countries have. So how are we going to trade and exchange money? Oh,
and
well,
last week we talked
just hang
about
on.
Beluga Pay that's offering
Yeah.
a system to incorporate cryptocurrencies into a merchant's ability to process transactions. And currently I think they've
Right.
got Bitcoin and Ethereum. And Ethereum's still okay, but they're both really slow and high transaction fees. I can't imagine how they're really going to accept Bitcoin on there long term.
And that's something
Raiblocks
that,
would be perfect
yeah,
for
that's,
them.
oh, it would be outstanding. And that's the sort of thing that if you have, the ability to go between the merchant and the customer, and it's like, okay, well, here's the code, the QR code. Boop. How much is it again? Doo-doo. And you see that transaction pop through a second later. I got it. Have a nice day. Thank you for coming. Come again. And it's something that for me, I go and I look at transaction fees and Bitcoin in my mind, when it costs you more than Western Union to go and do any kind of transaction. Okay, it's useless as a currency. In all honesty, it's useless as a currency if you can't make the small transactions. Nobody's going to go around and expect a currency to be functional if the only thing you can do with it is buy a car. It's just not going to fly. And to have the dynamics that Raiblocks has, or Raiblocks, I don't know how you pronounce it, but as far as for that, zero fees. If that's indefinite, man, that's huge. And the transaction times, near instant times, if it's less than 5 or 6 seconds, you got Visa, MasterCard beat.
Yep.
On approval times.
It is
and
really fast. I've seen it done on a video,
yeah.
And it makes sense because there's the way it works is very easy unless somebody actually tries to do a double spend attack. There is one caveat, and that is if you were sending out a lot of payments like every second, you would run into a problem. Because what it does is every time you want to send a transaction, it does a proof of work, and that's to prevent spamming on the network. Now, these proof of works can be done in advance, so it's like a particular one problem that is performed for each transaction, and so they can be queued up. It can do one or maybe, I'm not sure how many in advance, but at least one. And so when you send out a transaction, that proof of work's already done, and so that covers that. But if you were sending out transactions immediately, one after the other, then it would you would hit some lag because of that proof of work, and it has to be done by your client. So
right.
That is one thing that would slow it down, but from the average consumer, that is not at all an issue. That would only be probably a problem for exchanges or something who process large transactions.
And one of the things that I also read about it was that the consensus that's built into every step along the way in Bitcoin is only when there's a double spend issue, which, as far as for the consensus, then it'll go around to, the nodes on the network, which would be miners on the Bitcoin network, but it'd just be anybody who's running the app or running the program on Raiblocks. It sounds like they go, and that's when they do consensus, which one came here first, but with the transaction speed, the way that they have it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So as far as for that, it's, if there's a question of a double spend, that's when they go and check the consensus and resolve that. But it's, still amazing.
On Raiblocks, then they have a delegated system of representatives, and
yeah,
it is pretty consolidated at the moment, or more centralized. It's not centralized, but there aren't too many of these representatives overall. So that is, some people do criticize that a bit. I don't think it's a real significant issue, because those representatives will decide which transaction. So if there's a double spend, that means that more than one attempt to spend the same amount has occurred. And what the representative does in this case, because those are detected, that something happened, and what the representative does is they'll choose which of those transactions actually goes through. So if, say, 2 were sent, then it'll pick between those 2. Now, important to understand is that to do a double spend, you'd have to hack the software, I reckon, because it doesn't double spend by itself. You have to hack your own client to do that sort of thing, and so we've already got kind of a bad actor. So if the bad actor has to, be picked by these representatives, I don't think that's a serious consideration for me anyway. I don't think it's too important.
Yeah,
but,
I think with the transaction speeds as fast as they are, I'd be like, how on earth are you getting 2 transactions in the same second? Now, granted, I know a computer can do some amazing things on speed wise, and that a second is an eternity to a computer, but still, it's just shocking to me how any normal person would be able to get that done.
The client is going to process transactions sequentially, so it can't happen unless the software is hacked. So you've got somebody who is deliberately trying to be malicious on the network, and they've hacked their client to send out 2 transactions at the same time, or to some way to make them coincide when they hit the network, and so the network can't tell which comes first. So it's a really difficult situation to achieve, and I think if people are going to do that, then I don't care if there's just a few number of representatives who are picking probably mostly at random which transaction goes through, as long as it's happening, and that way there can't be double spending. That's the important thing.
Yeah.
It's interesting that Raiblocks has some similarities to Safecoin. Zero fees, near instant transactions, massively scalable. So I look forward to Safecoin coming about too, and seeing some of these. One thing Safecoin will add to this is fully anonymous, and there's no transaction history. So I think it's good. I'm glad Raiblocks is here, and Raiblocks. Currently Safecoin doesn't have a proposed method that has been fully worked out for divisibility, where Raiblocks is fully divisible, like most cryptos are. So Safecoin will eventually fix that, I reckon. But Safecoin is made safe's coin that's under development. So anyway, I just wanted to add that. So that's all I have for today. Do you guys have anything else to add?
It's been an amazing week, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's gone up like crazy. Gangbusters.
Gangbusters, yes.
Well, I'd like to thank both our viewers and my co-hosts for joining me today. We hope you found the episode informative and helpful. Please subscribe, like, comment, and share our video with others, and tune in next week for another interesting episode. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Have a good one, all.
Have a good year.